I hope you are comfy cozy because we have a lot of books to talk about. I got to go through September and October, all my comfy cozy darker books that I read, and of course DNF'd in those 2 months. So let's just get ready to talk about it. Hello. My name is Nakia. Welcome to my channel. So as you already know from the title of this video and the intro, we are going to wrap up everything I read in September and October. I am combining them because September was short and sweet, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna hold it all, do it all together with October. Also, like I said, everything was dark and cozy, so it's fitting to put it all together. Now, I have a couple books that are on hold. I have only one DNF. Can you believe that? And I have a new 5-star book, new favorite of the year. And I think I have a couple 3-star books. So yeah, let's just get on into it. So since I'm wrapping up 2 months this time, I'm going to start with the books that I read and DNF'd in September. Since I did an actual September TBR, I did throw in my October TBR in my Halloween book recommendations video. So if you have not seen that, you can check it out. But yeah, I'm going to start with September. And of course, in my usual order, we will start with the DNFs. And surprisingly, this month, I only had one. Can you believe it? But sadly, this was one of my most anticipated books of 2022, and I'm speaking of The Book Eaters by Sun Yi Dean. Now, as I said, this was one of my most anticipated books of this year. I love the concept of, once again, people eating books. But not just that, it's supposed to be in this world where the books that you eat have a certain flavor, certain taste. So romance books are sugary sweet. I believe it's the crime novels are a little bit spicy, and on and on and on. And in this story, we are following two characters, Devin and Kai. Devin is the mom, Kai is her son. They come from a family of book eaters. And we pick up with Devin and her son where there's some sinister things going on. With her son, Kai, eating books is not enough for him. He has to consume human minds. So Devin basically goes out in the streets and finds people to bring home to her son for food. So this started off so dark and creepy. I was really into that part of the story. Unfortunately, we had two timelines. We had the present, which like I said, dealt with her and her son and what was going on with that. And then we had the past flashbacks where we were getting more of Devin's backstory with how she was treated as a girl in this family of book eaters and et cetera, et cetera. Now for me, the atmosphere wasn't really there. You know, I picked this for fall. I was looking for something comfy, cozy. I didn't really get that with this. I don't know if it's that the author just didn't really set up the settings for me well enough, but it just didn't transport me to another world, which is what I wanted. And as I said, with the two timelines, the present was darker and more mysterious. And in the past, where we were getting more of Devin's backstory, we were going back to when she was a little kid. So they were just lighter in tone, more fluffy and supposed to be funny. And I just didn't like the two different tones. I wanted to stay in the present with the dark and the mysterious, you know. Come on now. The main thing with this story is that it deals with themes of sexism and gender inequality, which, you know, if that's what you're looking for, this is perfect for you. I wasn't really looking for that. I just wanted to deal with the magical world of them eating books and what that entailed. And like I said, the mystery and sinisterness behind her son needing to consume human minds. I did like some of the creativity that the author brought to this story, where once her son consumes someone's mind, he takes on their persona, because once again, it's like, you know, all of us is wrapped into our brain. So that was interesting. He would start to speak like the person and things like that. I just found that so fascinating. Unfortunately, it didn't go deep enough into that for my liking, at least as far as I got. Also, because the way they operate in the world comes from the books that they eat, they have to be mindful of the kind of books that they consume. So our main character, Devin, she has to go out in the world and, you know, blend in with the human population. So she does read certain things like the TV guide so she could be up with pop culture. And I thought that was fascinating. Also, if they eat religious material, it will give them morals and values and things like that. So like I said, I thought all of that was fascinating. Unfortunately, I did not care enough about anything in this story. I think it was just the fact that it was the two timelines. I really just wanted to stay in the present with her and her son. Every time we went to the past, I just did not want to read it. I could care less. So, unfortunately, I DNF'd this at page 37, chapter 5. Like I said, it just was not enough to keep my interest. I I was just bored with this book, unfortunately, and it's nothing wrong with it. I don't know what other people are saying out there in them streets. I just know this didn't really work for me. I think when I last checked, the reviews weren't that great. And also, I've had this book since September from my library. That tells you something right there. Usually when books are in high demand, it's hard for me to get a copy. And then even when I get it, I can't renew it because somebody else is waiting on it. Apparently, nobody's waiting on this book. But anyway, I really like the premise. Just unfortunately, it did not deliver for me. So moving on. Next up, another one of my most anticipated books of 2022, Amari and the Great Game, the sequel to Amari and the Night Brothers. And I did not read it. I was going to purchase it for my Kindle, but I just kept being like, I want a physical copy. I want to be able to see the illustrations and things in my hand. I want to hold it. And unfortunately, my library just has not gotten copies in yet. So I am waiting for my library to get a copy. If you are new here, I do not purchase physical books, at least not until I've read them and know that I love them, and that is very rare. So my collection of books is like 9 books total. But I do own the first Amari and the Night Brothers, so I did not want to just purchase this one first though without reading it. So I'm waiting for them to get a copy at my library, and it will be one of the first books I probably end up reading in 2023. Hopefully they get it by then. We'll see. Stay tuned. Then we have another one that is on hold right now. For some reason, all the books that I picked for September were not really giving me the spooky or fall autumnal vibes I was looking for. This one started off that way, and then it started going into another direction. But anyway, I'm speaking of Night Books by J.A. White. So I still even have the bookmark in here. This is also on loan to me from my library. You can see where I am. I'm about at the 50% mark. Now, this one is a Hansel and Gretel retelling, if you don't know. So we are following a young boy named Alex who gets kidnapped by a woman named Natasha. And of course, if you know the story, she is a witch and she traps him in her apartment. He cannot leave. And we find out that she basically kidnaps children and takes them hostage so that they can do her bidding and do her dirty work. Basically be servants for her. So our main character, Alex, also has a talent for writing short stories, and he decides to try to use that to his advantage and keep her entertained long enough so he can figure out how to escape. And Natasha loves scary stories. So we get scary stories interwoven in here in between our main story, which I really even enjoyed those short stories that were in here. They were just, loved them so far. The only reason I took a pause is because we got to a point in the book in the middle where we started learning a little bit more about Natasha and her magical spells and things she was doing using plants. So it got more into the fantasy realm, less horror. And at that point, I really wanted more spooky stuff. So I picked up something else that took more of my attention. I was like, I have to come back to this. I will go back to this because I was enjoying it. It just right now during this spooky time of year, I just wanted a little more darkness. And at that point, like I said, it had started to get more into the fantasy, and I will be in the mood for that. Just not right now. So again, I didn't say where I stopped. So far I've gotten to page 112, chapter 10. So like I said, I will continue this sometime in the future. Like the last one, stay tuned. All right, next up, I have a 3-star read. I'm not sure yet if I'm going with 3 or 3.5, but I'm leaning more towards 3. But this is The Binding Room, book 2 in the Inspector Angelica Henley series. I hope there's a book 3 coming. I don't know, but by Nadine Matheson. Now, I read the first book, The Jigsaw Man, I believe last year. I also gave that like 3, 3.5. So these are enjoyable for me. 3, 3.5 is not bad. It's just, good. Nothing spectacular. Good. Entertaining. And with both of these, I always do the audiobook. They are just so great. With this one, I'm not going to lie, the majority of it I did through the audiobook. And I've realized I just always need an audiobook running in my car. I just love it. I don't like to really listen to music anymore. I just love to hear an audiobook while I'm out running errands and stuff like that. So this one I listened to through all of September and October. So technically this is an October wrap-up book, but I started in September and it was part of my September TBR. So we're going to talk about it for September. But in case you do not know, you do not have to have read the first book to enjoy this. It reminds me of any serial drama that's on TV, like Law & Order SVU or Grey's Anatomy or House isn't on TV anymore, but those kind of shows where each episode has a different storyline, different case they have to solve, but then there's also the main storyline that has to do with the main cast. And if you jump in, you may not know what's going on with the main cast, but you can kind of figure it out that's how this is. There are things that carry on from the first book that have to do with the main character, Inspector Henley, but the new cases that go on in this book, like I said, has nothing to do with the last one. So what are we dealing with in this book, you may ask? I will tell you. In this book, Inspector Henley is called to the scene of a crime at a church. There is a pastor who has been murdered, and then upstairs in the church, there is a man tied to a bed, and he appears to be dead. So of course, because she is an inspector, she has to figure out what's going on with this case. Now, this pastor is a famous pastor in the community, so who would want to murder him? And it also appears to be a crime of passion because he was stabbed multiple times. And if you know anything about crimes, when it's stabbings and it's a lot, like I said, there's something going on there. That person knew you. And then the way the person is found in the upstairs room, tied to the bed, it seems to have something to do with religion. We're not sure. So this one was so fascinating. The mysteries, the two mysteries going on with what's up with this pastor and his dirt, which we do find out he had some dirt. And then what is going on with this person that was tied to the bed, because she ends up finding more people that are tied up and seem to have similar wounds, etc., to the first one that is found. Like I said, once again, so fascinating. I did not realize when I picked this up that this takes place in winter. So hey, you're in time to read it in the winter. I recommend it because they do talk about the cold weather and all of that good stuff. But it still was great for fall because once again, we weren't dealing with summer weather or anything like that. So I still felt like, let me cozy up with my blanket or just stay warm and toasty in my car. The pacing was medium paced. Chapters are short, so you just fly through them. You just want to keep flipping pages to find out what's going to happen next. In this one, we deal with themes of religion that is heavy throughout this book. So if you like books that challenge religion and talk about things like that, this is perfect for you. I found it very fascinating. And it also deals with mental health. That was also a very interesting part of the book. And then there's a little sprinklings of dealing with race. I wasn't necessarily here for that, but luckily it was sprinkling. So I was okay with that. It was a little bit of that in the first book too. Once again, she just put some sprinklings in there, which is fine. That's what I can take. Now, with any mystery thriller book, the plot twist will make or break the book. And for me, the plot twists were just okay. It was just meh. There are a lot of people that come into this story. Of course, they interview a lot of people, suspects and family members and things that they talk to. And, you know, people who work for the pastor, you got to kind of keep an eye on everybody. I'm not going to lie, probably because I was listening to the audiobook, it was a little bit harder for me to keep track of some of these names because I was mainly focusing on the main characters who were part of the first book. But like I said, you really got to be paying attention to everybody they interview, everybody they talk to, because it will come back in the end. Someone who was involved did take me by surprise, but I also didn't really care as much about the people who were involved in the end. And so that kind of brought it down for me. I just was kind of like, okay. In the first book, we were after one person and a possible copycat. So I was really fascinated with the main serial killer in the first book. This one is just more about, like I said, the mystery of what happened to these people and trying to figure out who's responsible. So like I said, if the who's responsible doesn't really work for you, it's going to bring this book down. And like I said, unfortunately, the who's responsible didn't really work for me. So it did bring it down. Also, this left off on a cliffhanger that I was like, what the hell? I can't get into it. But there is a storyline that is going on with Inspector Henley and her husband. They have marital problems. We were dealing with that in the first book. And her husband wants her to have a baby. That is a big source of problems with them. So something happens at the end of the book that deals with that. And it just left us hanging. And I was just not here for that. Also, the very last line of the book, I was like, that's how this is ending. That's it. Like if you pick this up and you want to just go read that last line, it was frustrating because I was just like, what am I supposed to do with that? I don't even care. Anyway, so because of those things, this got brought down to 3 stars, but my enjoyment factor was more like a 4. Like I said, I had so much fun listening to this every time I got in my car. I also, like I said, did read some of it with the book. But yeah, I enjoyed it enough that I am looking forward to book 3. I love her writing. Everything is so visceral. You can just, she is so descriptive with all the crime scenes and everything. The author of this book is a lawyer, so I don't even want to know what kind of cases she's dealt with that can give her the ability to write the stuff the way she does, but I love it. All the gritty details. It's funny because, you know, I'm picky when it comes to gore and stuff, but for some reason, when it comes to real life stuff, if I'm on the side of the cops or doctors, I can deal. You know, I can watch a show where they're doing surgery or something like that. But like I said, I don't want to be on the side of the serial killer. I don't want to be in your mind. I like to follow the cops. So I know some of you don't, but if you do, and you're like me and you love a cop thriller where you're following the detectives, I highly recommend this series. I love Inspector Henley and all the cast of characters. So There you go. 3 stars. Okay, so now we are into the month of October. Now I do have a book in October that I started in September, but I've read the majority of it in October. So that's why I put it in this month. And plus it was not part of my September TBR. But for October, in my Halloween book recommendations video, I talked about how I was going to read a bunch of Berenstain Bear books. And these just brought me so much joy. Like I said, these are childhood favorites of mine. So they just, like I said, bring me so much joy. I need to have some to own because I just love them so much. So I had found a bunch of Halloween type of Berenstain Bear books that I picked up. And first I will talk about the Berenstain Bears and the Ghost of the Forest. Now this one is actually more for summertime because they're Cub Scouts going on a camping trip, but because of the ghost, I decided to read it this month. So it still was spooky and perfect for October. And I mean, because these are so short and sweet, there's not really a lot I can say. And this one is a first time reader, so all the words rhyme. I love it. So cute. But in this one, basically Brother Bear and Sister Bear are going on a camping trip and they don't want to go with Papa Bear. They want to go on their own. And they're taking their cousin, I believe his name is Fred. Yes, cousin Fred. And Papa Bear is basically like, oh, you're going to go on without me? Okay. And because he's a little jealous, he basically is like, all right, hope those ghosts of the forest don't get to you. And they're like, what ghosts are you talking about? So Papa Bear decides to play a little prank on them, and you'll have to see what ensues if you decide to pick it up. I recommend it. I think this is great for little kids. You have to judge your own the age range that's appropriate for your child. It didn't get too spooky, of course. It's a first time reader's book, but I think this is perfect for a little kid for Halloween. And I enjoyed it too. Like I said, it was cute. I just love the illustrations. I love them so much. The way they live in the forest, their little tree house, love it all. So I'm not rating these because these are children's books and I'm way above that age. I do just put a little note on Goodreads here and there. But I mean, this was basically, all of them are 5 stars for me because like I said, I love them. They just bring me so much joy. Let's move on to the next one. The next one I read was Trick or Treat. Now, I don't have it because someone else wanted it from my library. I had to return it. I was like, oh, the audacity. Basically, Brother Bear and Sister Bear are going trick-or-treating and they're talking about, you know, how much fun they're going to have. But they're like, we are not going to the house of the creepy old woman in the woods. And Mama Bear is like, what are you talking about? She's harmless. She's a sweet old lady. They're like, okay, we're not going to her house. But when they're out trick-or-treating, they run into a little group of bullies who dare them to go up to this old woman's house. And of course, something will unfold. But I thought this was cute and sweet and it had a nice little message. All the Berenstain Bear books have a nice little message at the end. So again, this one I recommend for adults if you're like me and grew up on Berenstain Bears or you love children's books, picture books. And if you have kids that you think would enjoy this, I recommend it. Also, like I said, 5 stars. I enjoyed it. It gave me the Halloween vibes I wanted. They went trick-or-treating, had their costumes, love the illustrations as usual. Now, this next one I am saving for tonight or tomorrow night because I'm actually filming this on Halloween Eve, but you will see this sometime in November. Depends on how long it takes me to edit. But I'm saving this one for tonight and I was like, you know what? I don't really need to wait and wrap it up. It's a Berenstain Bear book. I'm going to give it 5 stars. You can check my Goodreads to see if I leave a note. But this one is Berenstain Bears Go on a Ghost Walk. And this one also has its trick-or-treat Halloween time. They have their costumes on. So I want to save this for tonight or like I said, on Halloween tomorrow. So stay tuned. Like I said, you can check my Goodreads. It's always linked below if you really want to know what I have to say. But once again, it's Berenstain Bears. It's not that complicated. And I have 2 books that I'm actually in the middle of. If you follow me on Goodreads, you would already know. But Small Horrors by Darcy Coates. I picked that up sometime during this month and I'm going to take my time with it and read a little bit here and there. One thing, as I said previously, I hinted at here and there, but I have been getting a little bit stressed out with the amount of content I see on BookTube where people just read so many books and I have just felt like I don't measure up. So when I was reading The Binding Room and it took me like 2 weeks that I was still reading it, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do a September wrap up. I don't really have anything to talk about. And I was like, I'm just going to start updating with more recent reads, which I will probably start doing in 2023. So you'll probably have more of those type of videos. Also, I'll be able to focus more on less books at a time and I won't feel pressured to read and get through all the books I talk about in my TBR and all that kind of stuff. I think I may start doing seasonal ones. I'm not sure, but I'm going to take my time with Small Horrors. I've read a few of the stories. I have really enjoyed them. They've been creepy. They remind me of like adult scary stories to tell in the dark type of stories, which are always my thing. But I will come back to you when I finish it. You have to stay tuned. And then I'm also in the middle of the audiobook for Bram Stoker's Dracula. And this one is the Audible original book, I believe. It is narrated by Alan Cummings and Tim Curry. And so far, I'm really enjoying it. It is nice and, gothic and all of that. And that's the audiobook that I'm running in my car. So as long as it takes me, it's how long I will take. I'm going to take my time and digest it and enjoy it. And again, I will come back to you when I'm done. All right, we're down to the last two books, closer to my 5-star. Bet you wonder what it is. You don't know. But this next one, I did talk about this in my October TBR portion of the Halloween book recommendations video, but this is the graphic novel for the movie Creepshow. And this one I'm also not finished with, but I have one story left. It's They're Creeping Up on You. I've seen the movie 1,000 and gazillion times, so I pretty much knew everything in here. I don't even need to read the story. It's just basically, I wanted to see what the graphic novel was like. But yeah, if you've seen the movie or not, this is an anthology collection of short stories, and we have Father's Day, The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill, The Crate, Something to Tide You Over, and again, They're Creeping Up on You. Now, like I said, I love these stories in the movie. Father's Day is basically about a relationship between a father and a daughter that is, pretty abusive. He's an elderly man and he's not the nicest, and he ends up dead, and we have to find out why and what happened after that, because of course, it's Creepshow. The dead don't stay dead. And in The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill, this story actually has Stephen King as the actor in the movie. In this story, a man finds some type of meteor. He decides to take it in the house because he thinks it's going to be worth a lot of money, and he does not have a lot of money. But of course, he shouldn't have taken it in the house. Some things happen and he ends up paying a hefty price. In The Crate, we deal with a man who is a professor and he has a rather abusive wife. He has a friend who is also a professor who gets a call that there's a crate that has been found, and inside this crate is a Tasmanian devil, but it is not your ordinary Tasmanian devil. So a lot of things going on with this story. I can't even say much else because I don't want to spoil anything, but I love it in the movie, and I'm going to get to my thoughts on this. Then in Something to Tide You Over, in the movie, Leslie Nielsen plays a man who is basically not the nicest, In the graphic novel, it was supposed to be that he had a wife and she cheated on him, and he wanted to make her and her Lavelle pay. Once again, it's Creepshow. So we're not ending at that. And of course, in the last story, They're Creeping Up on You. This is my favorite because it deals with roaches, and I hate roaches. So of course, this one always bothers me when I watch the movie, and even with the illustrations I've seen in here, gross, disgusting. So I'm saving this for tonight because, like I said, this is one of my favorite stories, but I'm also dreading looking at the pictures of these roaches. But anyway, in this story, we deal with this man who is a germaphobe. He's held up in his pristine penthouse apartment, but he's also running businesses, and he's just mean to everyone. He is racist, and he just doesn't like anybody. I think he's sexist as everything. He just don't like the poor. He don't like anybody. And so, of course, because he's such a germaphobe and he's such a jerk, these roaches end up popping up in his apartment. We don't know how, but he's got to pay a price for how he's been treating people. And like I said, you saw that picture. It's pretty gross, but I love the practical effects in the movie. So, how did I feel about this graphic novel? I'll tell you now, I gave it 3 stars. I'm not done, but like I said, I pretty much know. I already read 4 stories out of the 4 out of the 5 stories. I don't think graphic novels are my type of medium. We'll see, because I do have some other ones I'm interested in. Maybe it's the illustrations and stuff in this one. They are good. It just didn't do anything for me. Like I said, I don't know, just not really my thing. Also, there is more humor in this one because the creep inserts his little commentary throughout every story. And I was like, could you not? Could you please? Because he was taking me out of it with making all these little jokes, and every time he would say something, he would say, hee hee. And I'm like, could you please stop doing that? I got to a point where it was one of the stories, there was his little commentary at the top of like every little box. I started skipping his commentary because I'm like, I can't deal with you right now, sir. In the movie, he just introduces the story and that's it. Even in the TV show, he introduces it, wraps it up. In this, he running his mouth all throughout. I didn't need that. Also, some of these stories were darker than in the movie. We got a little more for the Father's Day story, which I liked. Like I said, that's the one with the elderly dad and abusive to his daughter. So we did get a little more backstory as to why she had an issue with him. And that one didn't bother me. In The Crate and The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill, I just felt like some of these characters, they had things that they said that just were darker than in the movie. Yeah, I think like I said, my main thing was that it just the dialogue and the creep inserting his humor in throughout just didn't really work for me. But if you like humor and you love graphic novels, you will enjoy this. Especially like if you've never seen the movie, I think you probably will enjoy this more than me. My problem is also I've seen the movie 1,000 times. I prefer the movie. So every time I would read one of these, I just wanted to go watch the movie. Otherwise, like I said, I recommend it. I was going to purchase this before I read it because I just thought I wanted to have it in my collection, but I don't think so anymore. I'm going to stick to the movie. That is still one of my favorites of all time. If you ask me what's my favorite horror movie, I will say Creepshow. So yeah, this was still fun. And like I said, looking forward to reading They're Creeping Up on You tonight or tomorrow for Halloween. All right, last book, 5-star book of the month, new favorite book of the year. And I am shocked. I did not expect that. But this is Hidden Pictures by Jason. I'm not going to try to say his last name. I did get the pronunciation and I forgot it again. I'm sorry. You can see it here. Like I said, I am shocked that this was a favorite book of the month and new favorite book of the year. I don't know what I'm going to do when I have to pick my top 3. But in case you don't know, because I have not talked about this book yet on my channel, this book follows a young lady named Mallory who is a recovering addict, and her sponsor gives her an interview to be a live-in babysitter for a couple for the summer for their son, Teddy. Now, when she gets to the interview, she sees some of Teddy's drawings on the refrigerator and she's like, oh, are these his drawings? You know, she asks the mom and the mom says, yes, oh, let me show you some more of his drawings. She shows her some more and they're a little bit weird and creepy. So the husband ends up protesting. He does not want this recovering addict watching over their child, but the child just seems to love her. And the mom is like, no, I love her. She ends up getting the job, clearly, because we follow her throughout the book. The thing is, once she gets the job, like I said, she starts getting more of these pictures. And Teddy tells her he has an imaginary friend named Anya who tells him to draw these pictures. Now, these illustrations, the pictures in this book are just so great. I love them. Let me just see if I can show you a little bit. Now, there are 2 illustrators for this. When you start to read the story, the drawings do change later in the book. And I believe one illustrator was the one who did these more childlike drawings. And then the other one did the other ones that come later. But like I said, I loved this so much. It had me hooked from page 1 until the end. I was like, this is what I'm talking about. This reminded me of when I read Lock Every Door, where I just couldn't wait to get back to it, where I was so invested and just didn't want to put it down. The chapters are also short, plus the drawings throughout make it go faster, because this was about 372 pages and I'm pretty sure I read it in a week. Like I said, it reminds me of when I flew through Lock Every Door. This gave me what I did not get in The House Across the Lake. This does take place in summer, so if you are a mood reader and you like to read books according to the season, you may want to hold this one for spring or summer, because they also, you know, go swimming and stuff like that and talk about the heat. But it didn't bother me because I was just so into the story, I didn't care about the weather. This one deals with themes of grief and motherhood and addiction, as I said, with our main character Mallory being a recovering addict. I love the way the author handled that and dealt with that. Now, as I was reading this, if someone asked me about it, I was like, I am loving it so far, but we'll see how I feel when I get to the end, because that will make or break, as I already said, a mystery thriller book. I was waiting on the twists and I just was here for it. I loved it all. I do understand. I heard recently, right before I was going to film this video, that some people don't like the twists and have an issue with it. I didn't have a problem with it. It reminds me of when I read 12 Nights in Rider House, some issues that people had that dealt with, they thought race. I didn't have an issue with. That's not the same thing in this one. I don't want to say, because I don't want to spoil anything, but there is something that people have a problem with. And again, it didn't bother me. I thought the author handled it well. That's as far as I'm gonna go, because I try to mind my business, stay out of things. But like I said, for me, 5 stars means I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I was just flipping pages. I couldn't wait to get back to it. And that is how I felt when I read this. I was so invested. I even teared up at the end because I cared that much about our main character Mallory and Teddy, the other main character of the story. I love this one so much that I probably will buy a copy, because I could just reread this right now. That's how much I loved it. I'm probably putting too much on it though. Don't go off of me, because I hate recommending things, but this just did something for me. Like I said, it reminded me of Lock Every Door, that kind of story. The only thing is, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily say this is for fall because it takes place in the summertime, but other than that, it was definitely creepy. There was definitely a lot of suspense with what is going on with these drawings. And then we also had suspense dealing with Mallory, you know, dealing with her addiction and always worrying about her job being on the line and all of this kind of stuff. She was starting to lie to people because she didn't want people to know that she was a, you know, recovering addict. And so then there's that thing going on there too. There was even a little sprinkle of romance, and I mean a sprinkle, but it didn't bother me because the way it was written, I enjoyed. I liked the other person that was involved in this romance, so it all worked for me. Like I said, I could probably take off a star for certain things here and there, but overall, at the end of the day, my enjoyment rules and won over. And like I said, this was 5 stars for me. New favorite of the year. Like I said, new favorite thriller horror book of all time so far. So yeah, I don't want to say I recommend it, but I recommend it. All right, my beautiful people, that wraps up all the books I read and the one DNF I had in the months of September and October. Like I said, we had a lot to talk about, but I got it done. What you can look forward to is sometime next month, I will be doing a TBR for the end of the year. I'm not going to do a separate one for November, December, because once again, I don't want to put all that pressure on myself. I already have books lined up that I want to read in November. I have a couple in December, but I don't know how I'm going to feel mood-wise because it's Christmas time. And, you know, once I put up my tree and everything, I'm just going to go with the flow. So I do know 2 books that I've picked that will work for me. Otherwise, I'm not sure if I'm going to want to be in a spooky mood or whatever. Want to read some Christmas ghost story. I don't know yet. You'll have to stay tuned to see. But I do like the way I'm doing things now, where I am just picking up my books, not worrying about how long it takes me to read, because those of us who are just regular readers who work and go to school and have other things going on, we don't get through a book a day. I sure as hell don't. So I'm taking my time and trying to be thorough with my notes. I hope I was more thorough with my synopsis and descriptions of these books and my reviews. I will probably be doing more reviews in 2023 because, like I said, I really want to get into the meat and potatoes of these stories. And like I said, bring you more of what we're here for. But I think that is all for this video. So feel free to let me know in the comments what your favorite books were that you read in September or October. Let me know if you read any of these books that I read, how you feel about them. I know I have one subscriber who was waiting to hear what I had to say about The Binding Room. So you can, let me know in the comments what you have to say. Spoiler free as much as possible. And if you don't have a comment, but you just want to show me some love or let me know that you made it this far in the video, you can leave me the little tree, foresty looking tree for hidden pictures to let me know, like I said, that you made it this far in the video. And as always, ways you can support my channel are always linked below. You can help out with ebooks, coffee so I can get through these books, things to keep this channel running. I have things that I need and have not been able to get yet. But anyway, I think that is enough for this video. I feel like I've been talking forever. I need some water. So anyway, until next time, snuggle up in your hideaway with a good book, unplug as much as possible, be kind to all kind, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.